By the time the Kawachi class had been completed, the major navies of the time had moved on to the so-called super-dreadnoughts with 13.5 and 14-inch guns, and some designs were even being ordered with 15-inch guns. So the Japanese Navy was faced with a choice. They could not build another class with 12-inch guns because it would be much weaker than contemporary ships. They'd just ordered 4 Congo-class battle cruisers, and at the last minute had changed the armament to Vickers 14-inch guns from the original 12-inch designs. So to save time and costs, they decided to use the same guns in the same twin turrets, although they had been offered options for a ship with 4 triple turrets instead. This was because it was thought that more twin turrets were better for offensive action, as you could engage more targets at the same time. It also meant that there would be a lot of common parts and skills shared between the Congo and the new Fuso class, which was useful as they were supposed to operate together. Contemporary British and German designs also used a similar principle, with 8 guns in 4 turrets for the battle cruisers and 10 guns in 5 turrets for the battleships. Because 15-inch gunships were on the way, the Japanese took this principle, but extended it to 12 guns in 6 turrets, the greater number of shells in theory future-proofing the ships against fighting enemies with fewer but larger weapons. The ships would be capable of 23 knots, which was faster than average for battleships of the time. This did come at something of a cost, though. In exchange for the numerous guns and higher than average speed, the ship's armour belt was not capable of resisting its own guns at battle ranges, which was the general rule of thumb for most battleship designs. The ship's main battery turrets were arranged with a pair forward, a pair aft, and a pair in the centre, either side of the funnel. A heavy secondary battery of 6-inch guns, some anti-aircraft guns, and 6 torpedo tubes completed the weapon's loadout. The class consisted of 2 ships, the Fuso and the Yamashiro, and was complete by 1915. Unlike the ships of other navies, the Fuso class did not do much in World War I other than patrol the local seas. After the war, Yamashiro became the first Japanese battleship to successfully launch aircraft, and a year later in 1923, both ships and other parts of the Imperial Japanese Navy assisted with relief efforts in the aftermath of the Great Kanto earthquake, which, among other things, badly damaged the hulls of a number of warships under construction. During the 1930s, along with most of the Japanese battleships, they were extensively rebuilt, with numerous changes and new machinery, the most distinctive being the so-called pagoda-style mast structure, which were needed to support a number of new fire control technologies as well as light anti-aircraft weapons. Despite all this work, they were the oldest battleships in the Imperial Japanese Navy by the time of World War II and did not see much active operational service. Although the engines had been upgraded from 23 knots to being able to do just under 25 knots, they were still not quite fast enough to keep up with the main fleet, which was tied to the fast carrier force. There was a brief flurry of excitement when the ships were sent out on an unsuccessful mission to hunt down the USS Hornet after the Doolittle raid, and then a supporting role in the attack on the Aleutian Islands. After this, both ships would become training vessels and supply ships, despite a number of plans to use them in various one-off operations that never quite came to pass, including one plan to send Yamashiro with a full load of troops to Saipan, run it aground, and use it as a fixed artillery emplacement in a manner similar to the final planned mission of the Yamato later in the war. However, as losses increased and American forces got closer and closer to Japan, they began to be brought back into active service, first to try and intercept landing forces, and then finally as part of a multi-front offensive to destroy the major American landings in the Leyte Gulf area. As part of the southern force, the Fuso and Yamashiro sailed with the heavy cruiser Megami for the Surigao Strait. Along the way, Yamashiro was damaged by air attack and American torpedo boats approached, but were driven off by the ship's secondary batteries. Later that night, the destroyer USS Melvin attacked with torpedoes, scoring 1 or 2 torpedo hits on the starboard side. Depending on whose accounts you believe, the ship either then capsized and sank in 40 minutes, or listed to starboard, broke in two and caught fire, burning heavily for over an hour. In either case, between the sinking and a huge oil fire, only 10 survivors would reach the nearby shore. This left Yamashiro as the sole surviving battleship of the Southern Force, and she was met by the fire of 8 light and heavy cruisers and the 14 and 16-inch guns of 6 battleships, plus various destroyers and other light forces. It was a battle that even both ships would have lost decisively, But Yamashiro didn't go down quietly, engaging its attackers with whichever main battery guns it could bring to bear, and trying to protect its escorts with its secondary battery firing in all directions. However, despite this valiant charge, the ship was quite clearly doomed, and it was hit repeatedly by 6, 8, 14 and 16-inch shells, plus at least 4 torpedoes. As the American ships ceased fire after one of their own destroyers was hit by other American ships in the confusion, the Yamashiro rapidly capsized and sank as the last 2 torpedoes hit home. And again, there were only 10 survivors.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship to review, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment on the pinned post for dry dock questions.